Hey folks, my name is John Slack, and I am a product manager here at Google Cloud. Today we're going to be talking about optimizing Microsoft workloads on Google Cloud. This means workloads like Windows Server, SQL Server, and Active Directory. Whether you're planning to migrate these workloads to Google Cloud today, or you've already been running them in Google Cloud for a year, we think that you're going to learn something new in this session. In particular, the session is going to focus on optimizing these workloads, modernizing them, and transforming them while they're running in Google Cloud. So, before we get started diving into the details, let's take a step back and talk about the history here. In 2015, Urs, Senior Vice President of Technical Infrastructure here at Google, said, "We're committed to making GCP a first class platform for running Microsoft workloads." And since that point in time, a ton of work has gone into making Google Cloud a great home for Microsoft workloads. This ranges from creating performance optimized Windows Server and SQL Server images to fully managed services where Google runs SQL Server, Active Directory, and Windows containers on your behalf. At this point, we have thousands of customers that are banking on Google Cloud for their Microsoft workloads. And outside of customers, analysts are also taking a look at running Microsoft workloads in Google Cloud. Forrester recently released a total economic impact study of migrating expensive operating systems and traditional software to Google Cloud. They saw that customers could save 45% by moving to Google Cloud. You can download the study at the link on the bottom of the screen. Similarly, IDC recently released a study, or IDC released a study last year that showed tremendous benefits of modernizing Microsoft workloads in Google Cloud. They said that Google Cloud provided an ideal platform for Windows Server based applications, where interview respondents cited flexible licensing models, a simpler pricing model, and fine tuned resource optimization that provided predictable and better TCO. You can download the study from the link at the bottom of the screen as well. So, when you're moving Microsoft workloads to Google Cloud, there are two key questions you need to answer. First, what workloads am I going to bring to Google Cloud? And second, where are my workloads going to run? Most customers start by lifting and shifting their on premises VMs to regular GCE multi tenant VMs. However, if you've got existing on premises licenses to bring to Google Cloud, GCE sole tenancy or Google Cloud VMware Engine are better choices. Now, many customers go and they bring these VMs, lift and shift them over, and they run in a self managed way for a long time. And that's great, it's a great option. But Google also offers a set of Google managed services. Customers move to the cloud to reduce their management overhead, and these services do that for Microsoft workloads. They range from VM Manager, which is a suite of tools to help with managing large fleets of virtual machines, to GKE for Windows, which makes running Windows containers in Kubernetes easy. Now, most customers don't experience all of these managed services or optimizations right away. Instead, they view moving to the cloud as a phased transformation. They start by lifting and shifting workloads into Google Cloud as they are from on premises, and then they look at optimizing those workloads. Now, optimization depends on what workload you're running, but it can mean everything from right sizing your virtual machine with custom VMs to disabling hyperthreading, which is a feature that is currently in preview, to using CPU overcommit when you're running on sole tenant nodes and you've brought your own licenses. It can also mean making Patch Tuesday and configuration management less painful using something called VM Manager that we'll talk about more later. Now, after you've gone and optimized your workloads running in Google Cloud, then you can start thinking about transformation. Now, transformation means different things to different customers. For some customers, it means getting out of the infrastructure game altogether and running your Active Directory as managed Active Directory or SQL Server as Cloud SQL for SQL Server. For other customers, it means containerization, running with Google Kubernetes engine, either with Windows containers or Linux containers. And for still other customers, it means getting off the Microsoft stack entirely and moving to open source solutions or cloud native solutions. Today, we're going to focus on the optimization and modernization stages of this journey, with a key focus on Microsoft workloads. These are 5 key products that play an active role in this process. Optimization-wise, we're going to talk about sole tenancy and VM manager. And from a transformation perspective, we're going to talk about managed services, Cloud SQL for SQL Server, Managed Active Directory, and GKE for Windows. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk about bringing your own licenses to sole tenant nodes. So any discussion of cost optimization for Microsoft workloads isn't going to be complete without some discussion of licensing. While many customers just buy pay-as-you-go licenses directly from Google, many other customers have already been running Microsoft workloads for decades, and they have existing Windows Server licenses that they've already paid for. One common optimization for this set of customers is to bring those licenses to Google Cloud directly and reduce their licensing costs. However, there are two important things to note here. First, this is only possible with older licenses. Newly acquired licenses, or licenses acquired after October of 2019, have additional restrictions. The second thing to note is that these licenses are often host-based, which means that you license the entire underlying machine, and the license covers virtual machines running on that host. That approach doesn't work well in a modern hyperscale cloud, where one, you share hosts with other customers, and two, your virtual machines might be live migrating to different hosts. To effectively use these licenses, you need to reserve an entire host just for your workloads. That's where sole tenancy comes in. It's a dedicated hardware offering from Google Cloud that's been designed for bring your own license Windows Server workloads. Now, one way it's been designed for Windows Server workloads is with CPU overcommit. You're probably familiar with this from using it in an on-premises environment. If you've got a Windows Server Data Center Edition or another license that provides unlimited virtualization, that license covers a physical host and all virtual machines running on that host, regardless of how many VMs there are. If you use CPU overcommit, you can pack more virtual machines onto the host, allowing your licenses to go further. Now, this is only appropriate for workloads that aren't sensitive to being overcommitted, but there are many such workloads in the Microsoft space, like virtual desktop workloads. Another way that sole tenant nodes have been designed with bring your own license Windows Server workloads in mind is with host maintenance. Like all virtual machines in Google Cloud, VMs running on sole tenant nodes undergo live migration during host maintenance. However, there's a trick here. If your licenses only cover a specific set of hosts, and you need to keep your VMs running on that same set of physical machines, how can you live migrate them? To meet this requirement, sole tenant nodes can be configured to migrate within node group during maintenance events. That way, your virtual machines are only migrating within the same set of physical machines, and you can ensure that they are always running on a licensed host. Finally, you can do regular GCE optimization when running on sole tenancy. For example, Google Cloud has many different virtual machine types that are optimized for different types of workloads. If you want to run on a compute optimized virtual machine, you pick a C2 VM. You can also do this with sole tenancy. There are node types for each of the specialized workload types, C2, M1, and M2. You can also just use regular general purpose sole tenant node types as well. So you've moved your workloads into Google Cloud. The next step is keeping them up and running. And that is a lot of work. And that's where VM Manager comes into play. VM Manager is designed to make managing your operating systems and virtual machines easy in Google Cloud, regardless of whether you're running Windows or Linux. And it's made up of three components. The first component is patch management. The second component is configuration management, which is currently in preview. And the third component is OS inventory management. We're going to talk about the first two in detail. So patch management is all about making Patch Tuesday less painful, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. And the first step to making Patch Tuesday less painful is making it easier to understand which systems need to be patched. That's where patch management's compliance reporting comes in. You get a view of all of your operating systems and the state of their patch compliance. Patch management leverages native tools to make this happen, and it supports all supported versions of Windows operating systems. It also supports many different flavors of Linux, so you can use one tool to manage your entire fleet. Now, once you've determined that you need to roll out a patch, that's where patch management really shines. You can granularly control which virtual machines need to be targeted for patching. And you also get deep controls over which patches are going to roll out. You can see on the right for a Windows machine, you can select different sets of patches to apply, and you can even exclude specific KBs. You also get controls over when patching occurs and how disruptive patching can be. Now, if patch management is all about making sure your underlying operating system is patched, up to date, and secure, configuration management is all about making the things that are running on that operating system up to date and secure. That might mean making sure your machine is domain joined, making sure your security agent is installed, or maybe making sure a monitoring agent is installed. The way it works is you define a desired state that your machine should be in, and you write it in a declarative way. You can deploy this declarative configuration at scale across your entire fleet. And just like with patch management, you can use a dashboard to view the compliance state of your entire fleet. You can also set it to automatically remediate problems as they arise, putting your systems back into in compliant states. Now, also just like patch management, you've got granular control over which systems configuration updates will roll out to and how quickly they roll out. So you can make sure that your systems stay up and running. So if VM Manager is all about making sure patching and configuration management are easier, Cloud SQL for SQL Server is all about making patching and configuration management Google's problem, not yours. Now, many customers, when they come to Google Cloud, they just run SQL Server in their own virtual machines. And that comes with a bunch of management overhead that we've just talked about. Backups, replication, patching, updates, all of that stuff has to be thought through for these workloads. But customers come to the cloud to avoid this management overhead. And it's really up to you to determine if these management tasks are a good use of your team's time. Cloud SQL is a fully managed SQL Server offering from Google Cloud. It's real Microsoft SQL, so you can interact with it using all of the tools that you're already familiar with. And it's fully managed by Google, so Google takes care of the backups, the replication, the patching, and the updates. Moving to Cloud SQL can free up cycles on your team so that you can work on optimizing your application, modernizing, and maybe adding the next new feature that's going to move your business forward. Now, some people hear the words managed service and they worry that they're going to lose control of their application. And I'm here to assure you, while Cloud SQL does reduce your management burden, it still gives you control over the important aspects of your workload. You control when you take backups, when maintenance occurs, and what hardware your SQL instance runs on. That's all configurable. We want to give you as much control over your infrastructure as possible without adding to your management burden. Cloud SQL is something that Google is investing heavily in, and you can see some of our recent releases on this slide. They range from SQL Server 2019 support to lighter weight maintenance to additional self-service controls. Finally, Active Directory integration through Managed Active Directory makes domain joining easy. Speaking of which, let's talk about Managed Active Directory. This is the next managed service in the transformation section of this deck. Active Directory is a key part of the vast majority of all Microsoft workloads, and that doesn't change when you're running in Google Cloud. If you need to bring one Windows Server VM to Google Cloud, you also need to ensure that that VM has access to your domain. And one way that customers solve this is just by deploying their own domain controller in Google Cloud. This works, but domain controllers are really sensitive virtual machines, and you have to think carefully about how you're configuring them for high availability, how you're approaching patch-ups, and when you're taking backups. So just like Cloud SQL, Manage Active Directory is all about reducing this management burden, so you don't have to think about the hardware management or the patching in Google Cloud. It's just Microsoft Active Directory deployed to any region in minutes. You can extend your on-premises domain using Cross-Forest Trust, and that's how most customers use Managed Active Directory. We've been investing heavily in Managed Active Directory as well. Here are some of the recent releases, including LDAP-S support, which allows you to use all of your normal LDAP tools and applications over a secure connection, to audit logs, where your Active Directory logs will be integrated into your Google Cloud audit logs. So you have a single pane of glass to look at all of the important information. And finally, domain peering, which, just like VPC peering in the networking space, allows you to share your domain across multiple Google Cloud projects. Finally, if we're talking about modernization and transformation, there's no way we can talk about it without talking about containerization. If you're running a homegrown .NET application, you might already be thinking about moving to .NET Core and running your workloads within Linux containers. However, for workloads that still require Windows containers, GKE for Windows is another great option. So let's talk a little bit about Windows containers. Just like Linux containers, Windows containers come with a whole host of benefits, including faster startup time, increased portability, faster deployments, and improved scalability. Also, from an optimization perspective and a cost perspective, Windows containers can help you optimize your licensing costs because many Windows container can share the same host operating system license. Now, just like with Linux containers, Windows containers come with a question, which is how do you orchestrate your containerized workloads? One answer is Kubernetes. And an easy way to run Kubernetes in Google Cloud is via GKE, or Google Kubernetes Engine, which is a fully managed Kubernetes offering from Google. GKE fully supports Windows containers, and they're a first-class citizen. You can run your Windows and Linux workloads side by side and get a consistent experience. And just like with the other managed services I've talked about today, we've heavily invested in GKE for Windows containers. Here are a few of the differentiated features, ranging from Active Directory integration to multi-arc builder, which makes it easier to build container images for multiple versions of Windows Server. In addition, you get some of the same great features that are available with GKE for Windows, like auto-scaling. We're just scratching the surface on this slide. For more information on GKE for Windows, there's a link to a webinar at the end of the presentation. GKE for Windows has been available in GA for more than a year, and many enterprises are taking advantage of it. One such customer is Thales, who noted the fast setup time, the seamless scaling, and the fact that they didn't need to worry about patching. Given all of this, you might be wondering how to get started with containerization. After all, it's not quite as easy as lifting and shifting a virtual machine from your on-premises VMware environment to Google Cloud. To help with this, we have a tool called Migrate for Anthos in Kubernetes Engine. This tool will take you through the migration process, from planning to generating artifacts to building your containerized image. And it's already in GA as of December. So in summary, customers coming to GCP get a rich platform for a phased transformation for their Microsoft workloads. They start by lifting and shifting their workloads to run in Google Cloud regular virtual machines, and they can optimize by bringing their own licenses to sole tenant nodes, right-sizing with custom VMs, or using VM Manager to reduce the burden of Patch Tuesday and configuration management. After optimizing, customers can then look at transforming. That might mean getting out of the infrastructure management business altogether with Managed Active Directory or Cloud SQL for SQL Server. Or it could mean containerization, either with GKE for Windows or moving to Linux containers with GKE for Linux. Finally, it could mean moving to open source or other technologies as well. To learn more about the features that we've talked about today, I recommend viewing DBS 205 for Cloud SQL, which is accelerating your move to the cloud with managed databases. INF 204 for VM Manager, which is dramatically simplified day 2 ops with GCP infrastructure. Also, there's a webinar for Windows on GKE and Anthos that's available on the link cloudonair.withgoogle.com/events/GKE-Anthos. And finally, you can try a simulated demo of all of the technologies I've talked about today. If you go to migration-to-cloud-demo.withgoogle.com, you can view demos for sole tenancy, custom VMs, Cloud SQL for SQL Server, Migrate for Anthos and GKE for Windows. It'll take you through screen by screen exactly what it's like to use these features and how they work. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Enjoy the rest of Google Cloud Next 2021.